Hey guys, it's Sandro here, and today's video is a review of 3 newly released Carpro detailing products, including WheelX, DLight, and Gliss 2.0. No intro on this one guys, let's get straight into it with WheelX. So, what is it? According to the brand, WheelX is a powerful, fast-acting, dedicated wheel cleaner formulated to break down ferrous particles, road grime, dirt, and other stubborn contaminants in one efficient step. It provides a safe yet thorough cleaning of wheels, calipers, wheel wells, and undercarriage during maintenance washes or coating preparation. It's safe to use on OEM, chrome, powder-coated, and ceramic-coated wheels, and can also be used for removing old sealants. Carpro does however state it may not be safe on bare alloy wheels, and that it differs from IronX, which is purely for iron removal over the whole vehicle, whereas WheelX treats other contaminants and should just be used on wheel areas, and it differs from Multi-X, which is an alkaline-leaning multi-purpose cleaner as opposed to WheelX and its acidic wheel-based cleaning chemistry. It retails for 22, 34 and 105 AUD here locally for the respective 500ml, 1 litre and 4 litre variants, and 19, 29 and 95 USD for the same size variants in the States. Like most products I review, my thoughts and conclusions will be based on more than just what you see in this video, though I will still do my best to try and show you what I'm discussing, and although brands' claims, new technology, performance, predictions and so forth are great to have, what I'm really interested in is what these products are like to use and how they perform for me personally. So let's get into that. First up is the user experience. Chemicals with iron or ferrous dissolving capabilities do tend to stink quite badly. I don't think WheelX is quite as bad as IronX in that respect, but there's also a bit of an acidic whiff, so you're getting a bit of both iron and acidic chemical smells. I don't think it's the best or worst in that displeasing pungent aroma, but I wouldn't expect anything great here. It is what it is. Secondly is dwelling and working characteristics. Some wheel cleaners have thinner, quicker and runnier consistencies, while others have slightly slower, thicker or more airy, clinging behaviour. There's 2 lines of thought here. Wheel cleaners that go on heavier or less airy can react and run down the wheel quicker with more volume to flush and pull the contamination down and off the surface, while lighter and or more clingy chemical consistencies tend to have less self-flushing abilities, may work a little slower, but do hold on to encapsulate the grime for longer. Essentially, neither consistency is clear-cut better or worse alone. It really comes down to how well they perform within that behavior and also what you personally prefer. WheelX is a very quick working, quick reacting and quick flushing chemical. In other words, it's not a product you apply to all 4 wheels at once or sit back for 5 minutes waiting for it to do its thing like many other wheel cleaners. In fact, quite the opposite. I found that in most cases 1 to 2 minutes of dwell time is where you need to be at, as after that point it will streak and dry very rapidly. For those of you that don't know, wheel cleaners aren't chemicals you want to entirely dry on the surface or do things like apply them to Hot Wheels or in direct sunlight, as they can etch the finish. Now again, thick versus thin, quick versus slow and so forth aren't necessarily better or worse. It's more about understanding that not all chemicals are the same and you need to adapt your technique accordingly. Now, having said that, there's no denying that WheelX is an extremely capable, effective, and maybe most of all, efficient wheel cleaner. I did a 50-50 clean using WheelX on one side and IronX on the other. Now, IronX is still a great wheel cleaner, but something like 80 to 90% of its real effectiveness is on brake dust or metal particles, which is where it truly excels. So you'd be greatly mistaken to judge any wheel cleaner on purple color reaction alone, which I see all too often, as wheel grime is more than just brake dust. WheelX on the other hand has more of a 50-50 cleaning ability, still dissolving the ferrous particles, but also dissolving the road and traffic grime with that rusty brown and grey reaction. Now, although some of the footage may not illustrate this as well as I would have liked, there's no ifs or buts about it. WheelX packs a punch and, let's say, isn't shy about stripping a wheel clean and bare quite rapidly. One thing I noticed when comparing it to not only IronX, but also a few other wheel cleaners on wheels with existing waxes or sealants, is that it did tend to strip those sealants or diminish their water behavior to a greater degree. Now, I haven't tested it on a more durable chemical resistant ceramic coating as yet, so I have to defer to Carpro there that states it's safe over their wheel coatings, but there's a part of me that feels it could be a little aggressive for regular coated wheel maintenance, though I can't be sure. Something else to mention is that it does have a great foaming ability when used with brushes to agitate it during a physical clean, but so do many other wheel cleaners. The real difference I noticed is that WheelX was better lubricated than IronX and even Trix, having more slip, glide, and less drag and tack while using the brushes in some side-by-side testing. I also thought WheelX rinsed off the surface quicker and cleaner than IronX, Trix, and Multi-X that did require a little more time and effort. Spending a week or so testing any product is never going to replace what's revealed after months or years of use. But here's where I'm at with WheelX. The pros. I don't think I've ever used a wheel cleaner that works this quick. It really doesn't mess about and gets down to business immediately. As a touchless apply and rinse off wheel cleaner, I'm going to say that it's got to be up there with the best ever. Once you start brushing, it does seem to provide not only great long-lasting foam and suds, but also good safe cleaning lubrication. Its effectiveness at cutting through severe wheel grime is just undeniably impressive. The cons. It dries and streaks very quickly, so you need to keep an eye on it. I also found myself reapplying it more frequently to keep it wet, so was using more product than expected. Although I didn't experience any surface etchings or wheel marring during my testing, its faster acting and more aggressive nature could make it more susceptible to that with inexperienced or improper technique. It may not be the best choice for wheel maintenance if trying to preserve a less chemically resistant wheel wax or sealant. Like most ferrous reactive wheel cleaners, it smells and is more pricey. And lastly, it's already sold out here locally. Next up is Gliss 2.0. So what is it? According to the brand, Gliss 2.0 is the ultimate top coat solution for car enthusiasts seeking unparalleled smoothness and enhanced protection, building on the success of the original with 2.0, now delivering more slickness, enhanced oleophobicity to repel oils and contaminants, while offering superior defense against water spots thanks to a water contact angle greater than 110 degrees. The new advanced formula is also compatible with both C-quartz and D-quartz coatings, making it the perfect top layer to elevate the performance and longevity of your vehicle's protection and beauty. It retails here for 75 and 105 AUD for the respective 30 and 50ml quantities, and 45 and 60 USD for the same size variants in the States. Starting with the user experience, if you've applied the original version, there's no big difference here with how 2.0 applies and what it's like to work with. It lays down like most ceramic coatings in a crosshatch pattern and still has the same very quick flashing chemistry, so typically within a minute or two it does need to be leveled down. It also streaks like the original Gliss with that wax-like haze rather than your more standard rainbow-like ceramic coating look. When wiping, you'll be presented with some initial friction or tackiness as you break through that top layer of haze, but then it quickly switches to a super easy and slick wiping process as you buff it streak-free. If this is your first time using Gliss, the tips I would give are to stick to small sections, use no more than 2 or 3 cross-hatching passes in total as you apply it, as if you work it too much, it will immediately flash and etch with streaks that are difficult to remove. If you do get fused on streaks or etchings, just apply more product to your applicator and use its own solvents to remove the etchings and immediately wipe it down. In a nutshell, don't try and work large sections. Don't overwork it and don't wait too long to level it down, and it's actually very easy and nice to use. So once again guys, just as I explained with WheelX, not all products are the same, and you need to adapt your technique accordingly. I should also quickly mention that I applied Gliss 2.0 to a number of test panels, all of which were decontaminated and corrected. Some were coated with Carpro Keyworth U.K. beforehand, some were over bare paint, some had compounding haze left in the finish, and some had multiple layers of Gliss. Basically, these very purposeful variations are all about trying to gather helpful and diverse information. Also worth mentioning is that Gliss 2.0, just like the original, is what we tend to categorize as a hybrid coating. As you can see, it doesn't have that super hardening effect like many full-fledged ceramic coatings. Next up was evaluating the look of Gliss 2.0. Now, how well a paint protection product can improve the look of the paint's finish relies on several things, such as its ability to increase reflective gloss, amplify saturation or darkness, add depth or clarity, and fill in or mask minor haze. The first test panel with Gliss over slightly hazed bare paint allows us to more honestly gauge what Gliss itself can do in this area. In terms of filling in minor swirls or haze, it's certainly helped out there. I would say on par with many good ceramic spray sealants, but I wouldn't say quite as good as many ceramic coatings such as Keyworth U.K. I also felt its darkened saturation is quite impressive, but where I felt it really excels in the looks department is twofold, with both outstanding reflective gloss and increased clarity or depth, which is hopefully coming through in the footage. When we move to the test panel with Gliss 2.0 over Keyworth U.K, I know it's harder to see the same sort of difference because UK has already improved the finish. But what I mentioned on the previous panel should still stay true, which is that although Gliss has helped with some minor filling and saturation here, it's not what really stands out. The main improvement I could see here, even more so in person, was the added gloss, shine and depth. I'll also say that a second layer of Gliss over UK only had a marginal benefit as far as looks go compared to just the single layer. Next up was slickness. Apart from feeling nice, a slick, low-tack or low-friction finish has the benefit of reducing washing and drying swirls and also preventing contamination from bonding to it as easily. Now, compared to bare, unprotected paint, the difference in slickness with Gliss is night and day. There's just super high amounts of friction and grab on the bare paint versus almost no resistance and just loads of slickness on the side with Gliss. Now, Keyworth U.K without a doubt adds slickness to car paint, but even compared to Carpro's own other ceramic coatings, slickness has never really been UK's strongest point. Gliss, on the other hand, as you will hopefully be able to see, is just a leader here that can certainly compete with some of the slickest paint protection products on the market today. The final point I'll make here is that 2 layers of Gliss did in fact create an even lower friction finish than 1 layer alone, I'd say adding an additional 25% or so more slip and slickness.
I shouldn't have met you, I only let you down. All night in your bed.
So let's move on to water behavior, starting with the panel that has Gliss over bare paint. Now, I understand that Gliss is meant as a top coat over ceramic coatings, but I hope you'll still find this information helpful. Now, as I continue to introduce various amounts of water in diverse spray patterns, you'll hopefully see that Gliss on its own is definitely quite hydrophobic as it beads nicely and sheets the water off quickly. But it will be a lie to say that it's outstanding or mind-blowing in this area. I would say solid, but by no means a leader here. However, when we do the exact same water testing on the next panel with sea quartz on one side and Gliss over sea quartz on the other side, it's such a different story. Not only is Gliss creating tighter beads, but it's also sheeting the water far more effectively and faster than sea quartz alone, which is very telling. This is just a good sign of how a great ceramic coating top coat should perform, which is that on its own it's still very good, but once it's mated to the base coating, it truly shines and excels. Now, just like in the looks and slickness testing, it's not like I saw a massive difference in increased hydrophobicity with 2 layers of Gliss versus 1. But it's still undeniable that the section with 2 layers of Gliss over sea quartz UK had the most refined water beads and was the quickest water sheeting section of all, if only by a tiny margin. The last test was chemical resistance that helps predict potential durability. I used Multi-X at a 1 to 2 dilution, firstly just lightly treating the panel and then getting more and more aggressive with each subsequent application. Every detailing product manufacturer worth their salt does stress testing to help predict durability. It's only the bad ones that don't and just make something up. When 95% of the products that do well here have also proven to do well in the real world, and 95% of the products that do badly here also underperform out there, that's enough for me to put a lot of value in this testing. The biggest surprise by far for me in this whole testing was the chemical resistance test of Gliss 2.0 over bare paint. I just couldn't break it down in any sort of timely manner. It just kept on taking hit after hit and bouncing back. Now, part of my surprise was largely due to the fact that I didn't expect it to be very durable without being applied over a ceramic coating, but I was greatly mistaken.
Slow down.
Now, it's not so much that Gliss 2.0 over sea quartz UK was easier to break down, as I was expecting it to be difficult, which was no surprise, unlike Gliss on its own that was very surprising. With that aside, what I can say is that Gliss 2.0 over sea quartz UK did in fact show better chemical resistance than sea quartz UK alone, and should, by my testing, be something like 25 to 50% more durable, or in the real world, maybe you'd get something like an extra 6 to 12 months compared to using sea quartz UK alone. If we fast forward to the chemical testing on the last test panel that also had 2 layers of Gliss over sea quartz UK, this was my second biggest surprise. No matter how many times I hit that panel, that middle section with 2 layers of Gliss just refused to break down and turned out to be by far the most chemically resistant section of all. I'd say twice as durable as sea quartz UK alone, with the potential to double its durability, which I certainly wasn't expecting. There's always so much more that can be tested with any new product, but here's where I stand with Gliss 2.0. The pros. I see no real difference in the application and user experience of 2.0, which is great for those familiar with Gliss version 1. It looks fantastic on the paint, is super slick, and at least when applied over a good ceramic coating is extremely hydrophobic. Its durability is unquestionably superior to version 1, and I think by far this is the biggest difference of version 1 versus the new 2.0. I also think the price is spot on within Carpro's lineup and where it sits. The cons. Honestly guys, unless I'm missing something, I don't think there's a ton. I guess if someone doesn't understand its fast flashing nature, they could find the application problematic. And the last thing I'd say is that I didn't test its oil repelling or water spotting reduction claims, which does make me skeptical as I've yet to see any coating, hybrid or not, really deliver on this reduced water spotting claim. Last but not least is DLight. So what is it? According to the brand, it's a new coating formulated for long-lasting protection of headlights, PPF, and other plastics. It has enhanced powerful UV protection and light stabilizers for a wide rejection spectrum, blocking the most harmful light, preventing yellowing, fading, and cracking over time. It's been engineered to enhance durability and clarity to preserve the pristine appearance of the plastics, but can also be used as a top coat for other coatings where additional UV protection is required to extend the durability. It has an easy application, hydrophobic self-cleaning, and superior resistance to environmental damage with up to 3 years of UV blocking capabilities. It retails here for 50 and 120 AUD for the respective 10 and 30ml quantities, and 90 and 120 USD for the 30ml and 50ml sizes in the States. So let's start with the application and user experience. One thing to note right off the bat is that DLight has a widely different look, feel, consistency, and behavior to any other Carpro coating I've ever used. It goes on thick to the point that I recommend you apply more like 2/3 to half the amount to your applicator compared to most other coatings, or you just end up with too much product that's both wasteful and can negatively impact the user experience. Secondly, DLight has the widest varying flash time of any coating I've ever used. I literally went from waiting up to 15 minutes for it to finally haze, dry, and flash, to then having it immediately flash within a minute on 2 separate occasions, which is just wild. Now look, that's comparing temperatures in the low teens to high temperatures in the 30s in Celsius and low versus high humidity. But still, that's a greater variation in flashing than I've ever experienced. To defend the product, I will add that part of that was also due to sometimes using too much and then too little product as I was trying to fine-tune the application, which was a bit of unexpected work on its own. Now, having laid that out, there's also no doubt that when you do get the application right in the right environment, the wipe off or leveling of the coating is actually quite nice and easy, especially if you're applying it to something like a headlight or a small trim. So I just want to be clear that in many cases, it was great to apply without issue. I think the more vital thing to be honest about is that if you are applying it to large areas like over a car's PPF, and you are in quite a cold or quite a hot environment, it is a less forgiving coating to lay down, especially without some experience in how to navigate coating application issues. The best piece of advice I'd give is don't apply it in temperatures below 12 degrees Celsius or even more so above 35 degrees, and especially in overly humid environments, as it may prove to be problematic, as I found out. Now look, I worked through some of these issues like etched in streaks, sticky wipe-offs, hazing, and even ghosting because I've been there before and I know how to respond to them, and look, the results were great in the end. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't throwing out a few curse words along the way. Many of the professional coatings I use are more difficult to apply than consumer-based ones, and it's normal for them to take a little more time to get a good hold of. So I guess what I'm saying is that this is no super easy and super forgiving Keyworth UK type application. It feels more like a pro coating that is more specific, less forgiving, and requires a little more experience to get it right, at least if you're trying to apply it section by section over large areas. But stick to smaller plastic trims and avoid extreme temperatures, and it's a much nicer coating to apply. I did also keep some of the cloths I used to apply DLight, and they all did harden quite significantly. I would say more so than Carpro's other consumer-based coatings, so no doubt, DLight does have a significant hardening on the surface. Next up was evaluating the looks of DLight. Now, I did a 50-50 application of DLight over Carpro's Immortal PPF that was applied to my car about 18 months ago. I have to say that I was absolutely blown away with what it was able to do to revive the look of the film. The biggest thing for me was how about 80% of all the sun damage, micro haze and scratches and so forth that the film had accumulated over the last year and a half just disappeared instantly. And secondly, how the finish was restored back to that same dark, wet and glossy finish like it was when the film was originally applied. I wouldn't say this if I didn't believe it, but I've never seen any coating fill in so much and just do this much to the paint, film or clear plastics so well. It's pretty impressive in this area. It may be harder to see the difference on the headlights, but the one on the left, coated with DLight, looks almost like new. And you can actually see better into it with this almost golden reflective quality, whereas the right side looks far more dull and muted. But here's the thing, on this headlight, although the sides are clear plastic, the front of the lenses are glass, and DLight seemed to work just as good on the glass as it did on the plastic sections, which was quite unexpected. After the coating had a bit more time to cure, I did a little hydrophobic testing on some of the headlights and smaller plastic trims that I applied it to, and look, it worked great to increase the water behavior and sheeting, but to be honest, smaller trims are never the best test as they can't accumulate larger volumes of water to start with. So the real test was over the large PPF on the bonnet. Now, I don't think DLight had the craziest water beading and sheeting I've seen if I'm comparing it to the most hydrophobic pro level coatings I use, but I would say it's definitely very good and in line with something like Keyworth UK, which is still pretty impressive. I was originally going to hit the bonnet with Multi-X and do some chemical resistance testing, but then thinking that UV resistance or sun damage is at the top of its claims, I decided to leave it and just see how DLight goes in the coming months over my own car's PPF. I did do a little chemical resistance testing on a headlight, and with hit after hit, I wasn't able to strip it off or even see much of a deterioration in behavior. But again, I don't like relying on small trims to evaluate these things, as in the past I've had very inconsistent results in doing so. My car's bonnet is the only installed PPF I have, but in hindsight I wish I had laid DLight down on a few other ceramic coated test panels and maybe some plastic trims or so forth. But these product testing reviews are just so time consuming, guys, and at some point I just need to move on and get the video done. But I'm sure I'll be further testing DLight as soon as I get the time. So as it stands, these are my thoughts on DLight. The pros. It seems to lay down thick and go a longer way than most other ceramic coatings mil for mil. Its ability to feel and mask is impressive, as is its gloss, saturation and clarity. It could very well be one of the best looking coatings around. It does harden impressively, certainly has great hydrophobic behavior, and although I'll have to further test, all its other signs and characteristics do tend to lean towards it being potentially quite a durable coating. Lastly, DLight does have all the criteria to slot into Carpro's professional line of certified coatings, so it seems to me the brand is taking a chance, releasing it as a general consumer available coating, which I'm sure many will be pleased with. The cons. Although DLight does go a long way, you can't disregard that it still is the brand's most expensive consumer available coating. Now look, you can't say a coating is easy to use without asking compared to what. Now compared to some pro level coatings, I'll accept that DLight can be easy to use. But if you compare it to something like Keyworth UK, it just isn't by a long shot. I just feel many users may level DLight too quickly as to obtain a less durable and lower performing result, or level it too late as to produce a difficult user experience and flawed outcome, especially in more harsh environments. Now again, it's not like it can't be great to use, but in the whole realm of consumer grade coatings, it's just not one of the most forgiving or straightforward ones to apply. Carpro also states DLight needs a minimum of 2 layers. Now on headlights or smaller trims, this isn't a huge issue, but if you're coating an entire vehicle, 2 layers is substantially more work and time than 1 layer with DLight. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed and found this video helpful. May God bless each and every one of you. Stay strong, stay faithful, and I'll see you in the next one.